Good morning, everyone. I'm Erica Janine, and my topic is all about Kolb's learning style and other concepts important to understand the learners. Introduction. In 1984, David Kolb published his learning styles model from which he developed his learning style inventory. Kolb's experiential learning theory works on two levels. First, a four-stage cycle of learning, and second, four separate learning styles. Much of Kolb's theory is concerned with the learner's internal cognitive processes. Kolb states that the learning involves the acquisition of abstract concepts that can be applied flexibly in a range of situations. In Kolb's theory, the impetus for the development of new concepts is provided by new experiences. Learning is the process whereby knowledge is created through the transformation of experience. So this is the illustration of learning styles by Kolb's ELP. Kolb's experiential learning style theory is typically represented by a four-stage learning cycle in which the learner touches all the bases. Muna sadya ang first, the concrete experience. It is a feeling of a new experience of situation is encountered or a reinterpretation of existing experience. Second, reflective observation or the watching. Watching the new experience. Of particular importance are any inconsistencies between experience and understanding. Third is abstract conceptualization or the thinking. Reflection gives rise to a new idea or a modification of an existing abstract concept. And lastly, active experimentation or the doing the learner applies them to the world around them to see what results. Effective learning is seen when a person progresses through a cycle of four stages of having a concrete experience followed by observation of and reflection of that experience, which leads to the formation of abstract concepts or the analysis and generalizations or the conclusions, which are then used to test hypotheses in future situations, resulting in new experiences. Kolb views learning as an integrated process with each stage being mutually supportive and feeding into the next. So it is possible to enter the cycle at any stage and follow it through its logical sequence. However, effective learning only occurs when a learner is able to execute all four stages of the model. Therefore, no one stage of the cycle is an effective as a learning procedure in its own. Kolb's learning theory sets out four distinct learning styles, which are based on a four-stage learning cycle noted above. Kolb explains that different people naturally prefer a certain single different learning style. Various factors influence a person's preferred style, for example, social environment, educational experiences, or the basic cognitive structure of the individual. Whatever influences the choice of style, the learning style preference itself is actually the product of two pairs of variables, or two separate choices that we make, which Kolb presented as lines of axis with conflicting modes at either end. So, balik ta diri sa illustration, no? A typical presentation of Kolb's two continuums is that the east to west axis is called the processing continuum. Mo ni siya from active experimentation to reflective observation. It is how we approach a task. Then, the north to south axis is called the perception continuum. Now, from abstract to concrete experience, it is our emotional response or how we think or feel about it. Okay, balik na. Kolb believed that we cannot perform both variables on a single axis at the same time. We cannot think and feel at the same time, no? Our learning style is a product of these two choices decisions. It's often easier to see the construction of Kolb's learning styles in terms of a 2 by 2 matrix. Each learning style represents a combination of two preferred styles. The diagram also highlights Kolb's terminology for the four learning styles. So, mao na ni siya ang four learning styles. Mao ni siya ang combination of two preferred styles. Ang first is ang accommodating. It is the combination of a feeling and a doing. Accommodating. Accommodating learning style is hands-on and relies on the intuition rather than logic. So these people use other people's analysis and prefer to take a practical, experiential approach. They are attracted to new challenges and experiences and to carrying out plans. They commonly act on They commonly act on gut instinct rather than logical analysis. People with an accommodating learning style will tend to rely on others for information than carry out their own analysis. This learning style is prevalent within the general population. Next is the diverging. It is the combination of feeling and watching. So diverging, these people are able to look at things from different perspectives. These people are sensitive. They prefer to watch rather than do, tending to gather information and use imagination to solve problems. They are best at viewing concrete situations at several different viewpoints. Kolb called this style diverging because these people perform better in situations that require ideas generation. For example, is brainstorming. So people with a diverging learning style have broad cultural interest and like to gather information. They are interested in people, tend to be imaginative and emotional, and tend to be strong in the arts. People with a diverging style prefer to work in groups, to listen with an open mind and receive personal feedback. Third is assimilating. It is a combination of both thinking and watching. Oh, both thinking, assimilating both thinking and watching. So preference is for a concise, logical approach. Ideas and concepts are more important than people. These people require good, clear explanation rather than practical opportunity. They excel at understanding wide ranging information and organizing it in a clear, logical format. People with an assimilating learning style are less focused on people and more interested in ideas and abstract concepts. People with this style are more attracted to logically sound theories than approaches based on practical value. This learning style is important for effectiveness in information and science careers. In formal learning situations, people with this style prefer readings, lectures, exploring analytical models, and having time to think things through. Lastly is converging. It is a combination of thinking and doing. So People with a converging learning style can solve problems and will use their learning to find the solutions to practical issues. They prefer technical tasks and are less concerned with people and interpersonal aspects. People with converging learning style are best at finding practical uses for ideas and theories. They can solve problems and make decisions by finding solutions to questions and problems. People with a converging learning style are more attracted to technical tasks and problems than social or interpersonal issues. A converging learning style enables specialist and technology abilities. People with a converging style like to experiment with new ideas, to simulate, and to work with practical applications. So, muna sadya ang mga brief descriptions of the four Kolb learning styles. This one. So, educational implications. Both Kolb's learning stages and cycle could be used by teachers to critically evaluate the learning provision typically available to students and develop more appropriate learning opportunities. Educators should ensure that activities are designed and carried out in ways that offer each learner the chance to engage in the manner that suits them best. Also, individuals can be helped to learn more effectively by identification of their lesser preferred learning styles and the strengthening of this through the application of the experiential learning cycle. Ideally, activities and materials should be developed in ways that draw on abilities from each stage of the experiential learning cycle and take the students through the whole process in sequence. So, the other concepts important to understand the learners. First is motivating and engaging students. Most students and their families have invested large amount of time and energy to gain access to college or university. They arrive excited and ready to engage in their chosen courses. Sometimes, however, along the way, they are discouraged and lose interest and motivation to continue with their studies. So, this loss of engagement can arise from first, internal conditions. What are the internal conditions? Internal conditions such as poor health, lack of confidence, low self-esteem, poor time management, and loneliness. Or external conditions. External conditions such as inaccurate course structure, poor classroom management, teacher dissatisfaction, disappointing grades, or any number of other distractions. Teachers have the responsibility to acknowledge and emphasize their initial interest and motivation of students to learn and help them to maintain it through the completion of their course. Individuals are motivated by different forces, but some essential influence on students' motivation and engagement are course design that addresses the needs and expectations of students, teaching that inspires and rewards commitment and restarts the purpose of study, inclusion of student individuality and diversity, opportunities to work with others, timely and effective feedback from teachers and other students, and being active rather than passive learners. So the other concepts important to understand the learners is the individual differences. It is important to recognize that there are many differences between people as there are similarities. An issue that is often included in the section of individual differences is what psychologists refer to as abnormality. The concept of individual differences is anchored on the main assumptions of the individual differences, prospectively that to understand the complexity of human behavior and experiences. It is necessary to study the differences between the people and not those things that people have in common. It explains why the individual differences approach largely focuses on things such as personality differences and abnormality. Individual differences perspective becomes useful in improving the experiences of people with mental health problems. Moreover, this approach has been found to be strong in the aspect of development and use of psychometric tests to measure the differences between individuals in particular qualities, such as personality and intelligence. Similarities and differences between individuals can be discovered with the aid of such tests that provide reliable and quantitative data and that can be analyzed easily. One weakness of the individual differences approach is in the reliance of dispositional explanations at the expense of situational reasons. The approach looks at individual differences as resulting from a person's own characteristics or disposition. External factors such as the situation or setting a person is in are at the times overlooked. A further issue related to the individual differences approach is the ethical issues raised with labeling people as being different. So, when people are labeled as different or abnormal, it has a negative effect on individuals. This is when being critical about. So he was particularly cautious of both reliability of labeling and its negative effects on the person. Like mga negative labels can lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy in which mga expectation nimo sa person can make him live up to what is expected of him and thus puts him in a position of disadvantage. So, mo ni si no ang mga I'm so sorry. So, mo to si ang mga disadvantage po no sa individual differences. And that's why it is very important to understand the learners and motivate them and engage the students. So, this is okay na siya. Mao na to siya akong report. Then, thank you for listening. I hope nakasabot ra mo. And thank you so much and have a nice day. Thank you.